Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Werfel, on May 22nd, we had Secretary Lew in front of us in the Financial Services Committee. And at that time, I brought up to him an issue that was of concern to me with regards to the activities of the department within your agency that oversaw the, that Ms. Lerner was in charge of, and oversaw the applications for tax-exempt organizations. And in discussing those with him, he said he's going to meet with you that following afternoon, and with your new job, and give you directions on what he wanted to do and how, the situation you were in. And one of the things that I brought up to him at that meeting was that not only was it disclosed at that point that the IRS was unfairly targeting conservative groups, not tax-exempt conservative groups, but they were also, but I wanted to make the point out to him that they were not enforcing the law against some liberal organizations. There was an instance that was brought up to me by a group within my state of some activities that were with regards to a particular group, and I spent 3 years working with Ms. Lerner to try and get an investigation of that group. Have submitted, myself and the group they're working with, submitted over 3,000 documents to her, and never received a single remark from her with regards to how the investigation was going, whether anything was done. And so Secretary Lew pledged to me that day that he would talk to you about that and have that investigated, and that be in the report, the 30-day report that you submitted. I did not see in the report. Did he ask you to review that situation?
Well, I think one of the first things I would respond with is I have some restrictions in terms of what I can and can't talk about with respect to an individual taxpayer, because it seems that your question orients around an individual taxpayer, and delving into the specifics of the situation with that taxpayer would require a 6103 waiver or something like that. So I apologize. I don't know the answer to your question unless I can get more specifics.
My question is, did he ask you to investigate that situation?
He asked me, well, this is a good way of answering it. He asked me to broadly review a variety of different activities within the IRS to ensure fair enforcement. With respect to a particular activity, I don't have a recollection of him raising a particular taxpayer or a particular issue, but I have to go back and consult.
Well, one of the concerns I have is that your report, the report that you did over a 30-day period, does not indicate any sort of investigation or oversight or even a mention of looking at the fact that there may have been a lack of enforcement by the IRS with regards to other organizations. So it would lead me to believe that there wasn't a follow-up, or he didn't ask the question correctly.
Let me respond in a couple of different ways. First of all, the 30-day report is a point in time. More work is needed, and there's more evaluation that's underway. So to the extent that there's some topic or area that is not as robustly covered in the report that should be based on input from this committee and others, that's something that we're open to. That report was intended to set up a dialogue. Secondly, I'd have to re-engage with Mr. Lew to kind of remind ourselves of conversations we had 2 months ago. But as a general matter, because the issue involves a specific taxpayer, I may not be able to cover it in a public report. It may be something that I need to deal with, and unless you have a waiver from that taxpayer, it may be something that I can't even articulate in specifics with you, just based on what the law is, not because I don't want to help.
Will you pledge to me today to investigate those folks if I send you a request?
I will pledge to certainly look into it.
And respond in a timely fashion.
I will respond to the extent I can, permitted by law, yes.
Okay.
But again, what my suggestion may be that it may be appropriate for the taxpayer to provide a waiver so that I can talk directly about the situation with a particular taxpayer to you, which is done. This is not an...
Well, they're not going to do that because they're of a different political ilk, and so they're not going to be willing to do that. That's the problem, is that they're being very punitive in the way they go about their activities. They're a direct violation of something you said a while ago, to the degree in which they're engaged in political activities that are absolutely in violation of their 501c3, I believe.
Let me make one point since you raised the question, if I could, and that is one of the things that was in my 30-day report, but as circumstances evolve, it merits more discussion and attention. And I think this has been publicly reported, but the facts in this case, as we review more documents and talk to more people, is that there's a diversity across the political spectrum of entities that were, for example, included on these lookout lists that were screened for additional scrutiny. And so the reason why I'm raising it is just kind of in response to the question of, to the extent there was activity by the IRS that leaned in one way aggressive scrutiny towards one end of the political spectrum, and another way less aggressive scrutiny. As the facts and circumstances emerge in this case, I just want to make sure it's clear that there's a diversity across the political spectrum of entities that had issues that are covered by that TIGTA report.
But the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Werfel, is this. Ms. Lerner had a political bent. She obviously was trying to be punitive in the way she looked at the conservative groups. I'm saying that there's another side to this that nobody's thought about, nobody's investigated, nobody's said anything about, and that is the fact that she did not enforce the law on the other side of the political spectrum and let them get away with stuff that did not provide fair treatment to all parties who were involved in this 501c3 exemption. That's the point I'm trying to make, is there needs to be a realization and an acknowledgement of the fact that she, as a member of this organization, refused to investigate it, and that has to be investigated.
I'm not aware of evidence that would support your conclusion.
It's in the file. IRS has got it, over 3,000 pages of documents. If you want to send it again, be glad to do it.
I'm telling you, I'm not aware of the evidence that would support.
Are you willing to look into it then?
Yes. I mean, one of my main objectives is to look into this entire situation.
Okay. I'm aware over time I'll yield back, but I think there's an important question that also needs to be asked today by somebody, and is this, do you share your databases with anybody?
We, under the law, we have certain legal responsibilities to share our data. For example, for the administration of tax purposes, yes, we share our data, but we do so in a way that has an enormous number of safeguards.
Could you share a list with the committee of all the agencies, all the departments across government that you share your list with, and if anybody on the private sector, any third parties get access to that information?
I can give you a head start on your answer too, which is if you go to section 6103, there's a particular set of exceptions that dictate when the IRS can share information outside
Will
the IRS.
you be willing, Mr. Werfel, to give us a list
Yes.
of every agency in state government and all the third-party contractors you have that collect data that you have access to and that you have data sharing agreements with?
We will do our best to provide you a comprehensive
Okay,
list.
thank you very much.